Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to another show, everybody, with yours truly, Stuart Andrew Alexander. And I'm back again with another impact-making guest who has plenty of great tips surrounding the problems, obstacles, and misconceptions you may have about your business. Now, my guest today helps busy people with big dreams to solve the problems they face when they have to change themselves so they can achieve greatness in their career and in their life. For each of the past 15 years, he's traveled more than 100,000 miles, facilitated more than 80 workshops, and worked one-on-one with up to 10 senior leaders and successful entrepreneurs to help them work smarter, think bigger, lead better, and achieve more. Please welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Womack. Jason, are you there?
I am here. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for the invitation today.
You are so welcome, Jason. I am coming to you from Cairo today, so hopefully everything goes well with the connection over there. We're really, really happy to have you on the show. So, Jason, for the listeners out there, who is it that you actually help? Who's your perfect prospect, so to speak?
You know, really, there's two groups of people who are most interested in the kind of work that we do here. The recently promoted manager, someone who's just given a new position within their organization. They're now in charge of a larger budget. Maybe they have a few more people who they're leading in that company. Or the recently funded entrepreneur. And that funding might come from their own family's investment. Someone believes in them, a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a friend, or an investment group. And so the kinds of people attracted to this kind of, I'm going to get better so that what I do works better, are those two groups, Stuart.
Excellent. That sounds really interesting as a target audience. And if we just dig a little bit deeper into some of the obstacles that these recently promoted managers and small business owners come across, what is it that's preventing them? What are the common obstacles preventing them from achieving their desired outcome?
You know, Stuart, I would say there's actually three things. I wish it would be as easy as there's only one thing and you take this magic pill or you fire the magic bullet and it's fixed. But what we found is that really three things that come together that will make it easier for you to be more successful. And this could be a more successful leader. It could be a more successful entrepreneur. It could be a more successful parent, a more successful community member, community leader. And in no particular order, Stuart, here's the three things that I would say I would want to work on, or I would want you to work on. First one would be your mindset, how you think about what you think. The second one then would be your skill set, specifically around communication and getting a group of people around you to buy into the vision that you're thinking is possible. And then the third thing is your actual toolkit, how you're using the gear, the tool. In the current economy, it seems like knowing how a few more applications or a few more tools can really serve you well in getting those thoughts that you have together in a way that people can come around and understand, and then to spread that message. And so a lot of what I do is work with people in this area, your mindset, your skill set, and your toolkit.
In terms of skill set, great. Tools, fantastic. But the one that really interests our listeners out there, and for me personally as well, because I see this as the driving force behind every entrepreneur, is the mindset. Can you just go a little bit deeper into that for me, Jason? How do you actually help entrepreneurs, the people that you work with, to improve their mindset or whatever it is that you do for them?
I really appreciate you sharing your focus on this. It was what I went back to school and got my second master's degree in, is psychology. Specifically, Stuart, I studied the impact of self-talk on human performance. And so for several years, I was doing my research on this topic. I would interview entrepreneurs, business owners. I would interview parents, leaders. I even interviewed Olympic athletes. And what I was looking for is what makes the difference between superb, stellar, world-class performance and performance. At the end of the day, when our head hits some version of a pillow, we turn out some version of a night light next to our wherever we're sleeping, we all ask ourselves this one question. We ask ourselves, was I me today? And in that question, was I me today, starts a tennis match. Right now, tennis is taking over the sports world as we're recording this. But it starts a tennis match. There's a whole part of your mind that wants to prove that, yes, you were you. You were the leader. You were the entrepreneur. You were the parent. You were the friend. You were the son or daughter that you could have been. And then right there on its heels are other proofs of how you weren't you today. Maybe you were quick to respond. Maybe you shut someone down. Maybe you did not get everything done that you had put on your to-do list or your task list for the day. And so what we found is that if we could address this conversation with self, that it led us down a path of more productivity, more engagement, and a feeling of empowerment. And I have a specific tool I use that if we have time, we can share that today. But there's specific things that you can do, ways that you can think that act almost as a guardrail. You see, one of the things that my teacher told me, he says, Jason, what got you here, the kind of thinking that got you here may not be the same kind of thinking that takes you to your next level of you. And so really, I've spent the last about 15, 16 years studying how can I think to get there?
Jason, this is really interesting, especially from my own personal view. If I may bring that in, mindset as an entrepreneur has always been something that I've put a lot of effort into trying to improve on a daily basis. However, we've all got this little voice inside our head. Consciously, we say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm this. I want this. I'm going to achieve this. But subconsciously, there's a little voice saying, who do you think you are? Or it may be a voice from the past, as in my case. Unfortunately, as a child, I was told quite often on a regular basis that I was the worst kid in my city, in my town. And that came from somebody who's very close to me, someone who is in a very responsible position. It came from, and I'll say it on air, it came from my own mother. And even today, with 52 years old, that little voice is still there every single day. I have to grapple with that voice. Do you have any advice? Not just for me, because I'm sure there are other people out there who have that voice, wherever it came from, a friend, a colleague, a teacher, a parent, another relative. Do you have some advice? What's your best piece of advice for somebody to cope with that? Because I don't believe it's something that actually goes away unless you can tell me something different. But what's your best piece of advice for coping with that little voice?
Well, my first sharing of, I don't know if we can call it advice as much as an observation, is you're demonstrating while you're sitting or standing where you are right now. For every one of us listeners, you're demonstrating what I believe is ground zero, step one, the modus operandi of addressing the word, the power, the concept I call influence. By going back in time, by going through your own personal history and recognizing not right, not wrong, not good, not bad, not light, not dark. Here are the facts as far as I remember them. Now, what I know about the human psyche, what I know about the human condition is we are incredibly malleable structures. What does that mean? We can hear something once, and in your case, if we hear it over and over again, the impact of that isn't like softening a piece of clay that you can change again tomorrow morning. It's a hardened pot that, sure, you could chip away at it, but that pot will always hold its structure, as it has in your case. So then we ask, well, over the past 5 decades, what is it that you have done? How is it that you have been? What is it that you have experienced that says, yes, I have this? Did you ever see the movie, Stuart, called The Mission? Remember seeing that movie?
No, unfortunately not, no.
If you get a chance, it's there's a scene in there where this main character, he's climbing up a waterfall and he's carrying on his back this incredible satchel, this huge bag. And as he's climbing, you can tell him wrestling with, if I would just drop the bag, I could climb the hill easier. So what do we do with that voice? And by the way, I'm not going to say what do we do if we have the voice. Everyone has the voice. Right. It's called, in psychological terms, we could call it cognitive dissonance. We could call it the Zeigarnik effect. There's so many ways that we could play with the impact of the voices in our minds. But you, and just what you did maybe 3 or 4 minutes ago, in front of all of us, in saying, hey, I have this, it's here, and now what? My second then piece of advice, and this will be the tactic that I can share with anyone, is it's tactile. You need a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper or your favorite journal. And it's an activity will probably take you 15 minutes. Up on top of the piece of paper, I simply write down the words, I am at my best when. I am at my best when. Now, Stuart, when I ask most people the question, hey, when are you at your best? A lot of people will answer with a temporal response. Jason, I'm at my best in the morning. I'm at my best after I put the kids to bed. I'm at my best on the weekend when I don't have a boss watching over my shoulder. Those are time-based answers, and those are, of course, applicable. What I'm more interested in for all of you listeners, and by the way, Stuart, if anybody wants to create their At My Best When inventory, snap a photo. If they post it on social media and tag me, I'll comment and I'll share my viewpoint and my additions if they want.
Perfect.
I would go for, absolutely, what I would go for are the conditions that increase the likelihood that you can not just recognize that voice is there, but then move beyond it. So, for example, I'm at my best when I acknowledge someone on my team for work they've done today. Well, Stuart, I'll share with you my personal experience. When I was a child, I was told that what I did was never good enough.
Right.
So my at my best when, if you deconstruct that, and you can read this in my book, my at my best when of acknowledging someone on my team for work that they did that day, that's in direct conflict with what I grew up with, which was I was never enough. So what I'm doing is I'm chipping away. No, I cannot reverse time. I can't go back in my history and undo that memory I have. I'm at my best when I exercise 20 minutes a day, at least 3 days per week. Now, of course, I want to do more than that. But if I go too many days without increasing my heart rate a little bit, without getting that endorphin flow, I start to drop in my performance. I'm at my best when, here's a recent one, I'm at my best when every day I look at my calendar 45 to 90 days in the future and I chip away at something that's not due for 45 to 90 days. I'll tell you, that one single at my best when in the past 2 years has transformed our company. Now, I don't work every day on something that's 45 to 90 days, but when I'm at my best, I'm chipping away, I'm chipping away, I'm chipping away.
So if I understand correctly then, Jason, when you are clear about when you are at your best and what you are at your best at, then if you shift your focus towards that, then that can create a massive shift in your life. Is that correct?
it follows the belief that where my attention goes, action follows.
Right.
Where action goes, belief is the result. Focus, action, belief. Right now, where you were sharing, if we look back in time, if we continue to revolve in the belief pattern that we had as children or adolescents or even teenagers, what do we need to do? We change our attention, then we change our action, and then we start to chip away at the beliefs.
Excellent. That there is going to be a massive help, not just for myself, but I'm sure for the listeners out there that I'm listening into this, because I feel it's something of epidemic proportions, really. That little voice in your head, like you said, everybody has it.
We do have, for anybody who wants, a free resource is at mybestwhen.com. I've left a couple of videos there. I've left a worksheet there. I've left an audio message that people can listen to. But I believe in this so much that if people – can I share a dream I have for the world? Is that appropriate at this time?
Absolutely.
I have a dream that in schools around the world, that early in the morning every single day, teachers will look out at their students and ask them, when are you at your best, and how can we help you achieve that? I think that this could create a massive shift in the consciousness of our planet. If young children were brought up in an environment that said, hey, when are you at your best? Because it's our job to create the conditions for you to step into that. I believe in my lifetime we could change how we get along with one another.
Jason, that is profound. That is really profound. And just hearing that makes me want to be a part of that. It's just something that's needed. I'm just so glad that you've shared that with us, and who knows who's going to listen to this and jump on board and help you, support you with your mission. But I'm certainly on board with that. So that's something that we can speak about. Anyway, Jason, moving on, going back to the people that you help most, the recently promoted managers and the small business owners that have just founded a company. What are 2 to 3 misconceptions, like popular misconceptions about achieving their desired income of being able to work smarter, lead better, think bigger, and achieve more? What are a couple of misconceptions that you can go through, please?
I think that every one of us has inside of us the information we need. Call it intuition, call it the gut feeling. The moment that shift happens, and on a very real or practical sense, the easiest way I think to unpack this by way of example, and then we can go back through the actual theory behind it. I tend to go practical then theoretical as opposed to the other way around. But what I encourage people to do is to study or to look into a real personal life shift, life change. The easiest ones that I've ever experienced were when I got a first job, when I got married, when my wife and I purchased our home, when we decided to strike out on our own and create our own companies. So I can unpack any one of those 4. And those of you listening, you've got your own examples of major life change. I was just listening to a lecture this morning from a professor out of Bryant University here in the States, and he was talking about the psychology of decision making and what happens when we say to ourselves, I'm going to do things differently, and then they don't do what it was that they decided. So step 1, I think, from my perspective, is to look back on 1 or maybe 2, but you could probably get enough information, a life change, and ask yourself the questions that you know you need to process. If I take, for example, when my wife and I decided to strike out on our own and to start our own companies, we started with one little advising firm. And I can look back in time and ask myself those 4 prompts. How am I going to work smart? How am I going to think big? How am I going to lead better? And how am I going to achieve more? So what I thought I would do is just share with you maybe one or two things that you could take a look at. Why don't we start with the work smart one, only because I think that has the greatest potential for someone being able to do something right away. Mm-hmm. Every task, every to-do, we are routine machines, Stuart. We wake up in the morning and our body and our mind simply wants to do what we know we always do in the morning. So if you're a small business owner, there's certain things you're going to do to get ready for the business day. If you're that recently promoted manager, you've probably already fallen into some kind of routine or habit outline of the day. Here's my recommendation. Find someone who has a similar position to you, a similar business to you, a similar title to you, and somehow figure out a way to let them watch you work for about an hour. Let me give you a perfect example that showed up for me. I'm a writer. I write articles. I'm working on my 4th book right now. I write a lot of blog posts. So what I did is I found someone who's written even more than me, this guy named Larry here in California. And I invited Larry over and I said, hey, I'm going to do a writing session. For me, that means 90 minutes. I said, will you just watch me write? Well, at the end of those 90 minutes, he didn't give me a lesson on writing. He didn't tell me about his success secrets, his 4 ways, his this or that. He simply went through minute by minute, Stuart, of what he saw me do, about how I distracted myself, about how I was editing while I was writing, about how at one point I got up from my desk and I left for 5 minutes. He said, where'd you go? I said, I don't know. And so what happened was because I didn't have the ability to take that meta position on myself, I needed to have that observation. Trust me, I am all about going to classes, going to conferences, listening to podcasts, getting the experts' ideas. I believe all of that's valuable. I have found nothing that has improved my performance faster than getting someone to watch me work and then help me devise something that really matches my style.
Mm-hmm. That's some really interesting feedback there, Jason. Let me just quickly ask you, for the people out there that have the mindset of it's going to take an outside expert, one that has the knowledge to make things happen or to make things change, is that something that you come across, something that you could share, impart some knowledge about?
I think so. I'm going to ask you to go. There's a question behind your question. I want to know what are you really asking?
Okay, I'm asking about another misconception that people most likely have, and the misconception is that an outside expert is required for one to acknowledge that that change has to happen. So,
and I can almost hear the self-talk behind that of I'm not worthy, I don't know enough, who am I to think that I can impact the planet, what gives me the right? Am I on course here?
Hey, Jason, I'm the voice of the listener, so yeah, definitely on course, definitely. Please, go ahead.
I'm saying this with a big smile because this conversation, this brings joy to my heart. You see, what we're doing with everyone today and everyone in perpetuity who listens to this is we're sharing with you this is the real stuff. I wish it was as easy as going to a website and finding the 3 keys to success and the 4 habits of highly successful entrepreneurs and the 5 things to say that will get you your next business deal. I wish it were that easy. It's not, because of this underlying, it's almost like a knot. If you could see me right here, I'm clenching my right fist because that's, I think, how tight this is for some people. And so what I would say is every single one of us, I'm going to include me, I'm going to include you, I'm going to include the listener. Every single one of us is required to make things better. The title of my book is called Your Best Just Got Better. I completely realize the title of that book, this philosophy, Stuart, it's not for everybody. It isn't. And I had a debate with the publisher several years ago because they told me, they said, Jason, the title of your book, Your Best Just Got Better, might act as a deterrent to people who are fine with good enough. They said, there's going to be people who see the title of your book and say, it's good enough. And I remember saying across the table, I said, those aren't my people.
Exactly.
So those of us who run this thought process, who am I? Am I worthy? What makes me think I have the right? What I would suggest that you start doing is start small, practice on the small things so that you can perform on the big ones. Do we have time for a short story, Stuart, that I can exemplify this?
Please, go ahead.
So back in 2008, 2009, many of us remember there was a turn in the world economy. Started here in the United States, and the shock wave went throughout the world. From 2008 to 2009, our business was impacted. I'm sure many listeners' business was impacted. So my wife, Jody, she called 12 of her friends, women business owners or women business leaders. All of them were women. And here was the invitation by phone. She said, next Tuesday night, this was to be a February in 2009. She said, next Tuesday night, I'd like all of us to get together and we're going to share with each other what we're doing to win business, what we're doing to succeed in leadership, what we're doing that's working. So the 13 of them got together on a rainy, it does rain in California, on a rainy February evening. And here's what Jody did. She facilitated a conversation where one by one, each woman shared what she was great at and what she knew she needed help becoming better at. What she was great at. Was she skilled as a communicator? Was she skilled as a marketer? Was she skilled at looking the bookkeeping? Was she skilled at customer relationships? And what she needed help in. Did she need help in staffing issues? Did she need help in reaching out to more influential buyers? Did she need help in whatever? As a result of this one evening, over the next couple of weeks, Jody got emails, she got phone calls, woman even wrote a handwritten thank you card, Stuart. And here was the ask from these women. They said, Jody, that was so valuable. When are we doing it again?
Right.
Well, that one evening became the first of 5 years, 60 months of regular gatherings of women in business. Now, the reason I tell this story so slowly is we have a Chamber of Commerce. We have a Rotary. We have a Lions Club. We have business development groups here in our town. But you know what? They wanted Jody. They wanted her mindset. They wanted her love. They wanted her heart. And they wanted to be around her. She wound up speaking in Venice, Italy. She spoke in Paris, France. She spoke in Zurich, Switzerland, London, England, throughout the United States. And we think the reason that she did that, the reason that it worked, is she showed up as a heart center. Now, by the way, do you know what the questions were that she got from some of these other business group organizations? Who gives you the right? What makes you think you can start? Why should you be the one that people go to for business advice? And over again, Jody said, look all I'm doing is making a Facebook event and people are showing up.
So she was doing what she was best at.
From the time that she was a young girl, she has been inviting people to parties.
Jason, why don't people that you can help the most, the people you have a passion around helping, why is it that when you sit down and you talk with them and you consult and you show them solutions to their situations, that they still at the very last minute turn around and say, I don't know, Jason, and they simply don't buy from you or hire you? Why is that? Why does that happen?
I'll give two answers to that. The short one is the first one, just to get that out of the way. And then the second one will go into more detail. The first experience. For any of you who sell a service as your product, for any of you who sell your advice, your opinion, your counsel, or your experience, this will be the short answer, Stuart. When I don't charge enough money, people don't do what I advise them. And I wish it weren't true. I would do, don't put this in print. I would do what I do for free. However, when I give it away, people don't appreciate it. So that's the first comment that I have to make out loud. When I started my business, I priced what I do, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a coaching, whether it's our online academy. I priced it at what I thought we could get away with, at what would sustain us, at what would support us. And over again, I had people say, well, it doesn't seem like it costs enough, so maybe it's not that valuable. So that would be my first piece of advice. The second one is a little bit more difficult for me to accept. It's a little tough for me to swallow. Not everyone is willing to do the work. When I work with someone, there's two, I call them yes hurdles. A yes hurdle is when someone asks you if they can have your advice, if they ask you to sit down over a tea or a coffee, or they say, hey, I have this idea. Can you spend a little time with me helping me through the idea? All the way to someone who says we want to hire you for something. A yes hurdle is yes, and this is what you need to do before we work together. Whether it's having a coffee, going to a lunch, or bringing me into their firm. And I have two of them. The first one I've already explained, the at my best when. If someone does not have the time and the wherewithal to sit down, pull open a piece of paper, their notebook, take out a pen or a favorite pencil, if they don't have time to write down when they're at their best, they're not going to have time to follow my advice subsequent. The second thing that I need them to do is to share your ideal day. So what I'll have someone do is open their calendar. They'll go 6 to 12 months into the future. They pick a day that's more important than other days. It could be a celebration. It could be a holiday. It could be a graduation. It could be something coming to a vacation, something coming towards them that's a bigger day than other days. And then I ask them to freehand script a 400 to 600 word description of how that would be an ideal day. I call this share your ideal day. If they can't do those two things for me, if they won't tell me when they're at their best, and they can't envision what an ideal day is, they're not going to be a great client of mine, because that just demonstrates to me that they're not willing to do the work.
I totally concur with you, especially on the first insight that you shared. When, put it in layman's terms, if there's no skin in the game, then people are just not motivated to do anything. So you could offer somebody, a course worth $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, but if they're getting it for free, there's no investment, there's nothing to lose, so it will just sit there and they'll do nothing. So totally concur with that. For any of the listeners out there, Jason just shared some excellent advice, because we do tend to want to help as consultants, as entrepreneurs, and we say, let's just give this away for free. It's really going to help people. If they just use this, then we'll be able to take them to the next level. And in most cases, it just doesn't happen.
A form of payment for me is time and attention. It can be financial, it can be temporal, it can be attentive. When I say to people they can post their at my best when inventories, if they tag me, I'll go find that, because I'll show up in the tag and I'll comment on their thing. That's a form of payment. They've paid with their time and attention, and they've put some, as you said, skin in the game. Of course, I'm going to show up and meet them there. So I think that there's different ways that we can take a look at that.
So do you ever come across people who have actually put some skin in the game? However, it's being with the quote-unquote personal development tools and resources, and there's been a lot of change in that area in terms of the terminology. So terminology as life, such as life hacking, etc. Do you come across those kind of people who, have had that kind of experience. They've invested there, it didn't work, and now that may serve as an obstacle to working with you?
My head is shaking up and down as a vehement yes, and I mean, I think this is an issue we're going to face going into the 21st and 22nd centuries, which is the concept of just-in-time inventory control that started with the retail sector being applied to the just-in-time information controls that people are attempting to apply to their career and their personal development. What do I mean by that? Well, if I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm trying to write an article that's 300 to 400 words long for a blog post, I can instantly do a quick video search, audio search, podcast search, web search for how many different ways to write a 300 to 400 word blog post. In fact, I'll see someone spend 3 or 4 days researching the different ways they could write a 300 to 400 word blog post and never get the blog post done. Mm. So what gets in the way of us is not too much information, but what gets in the way for us is not deciding when is enough enough. As I'm sure you follow Seth Godin's work even a little bit, and sure. One of the things that I've gained from him is the concept of to ship early and ship often. So can I, instead of publishing a 300 or 400 word blog post for the world, could I draft that blog post and share it with 10 of my friends? So let me email that to 10 people and ask them, would you read this if it were on my blog? Well, if 7 of the 10 reply back and go, Jason, you really need to do a little bit more work on it, that's good information. If 6 of the 10 reply and say, wow, this is the best thing I've read all week, boom, there I go.
And it reminds me of something my mentor always reminds me of. He always says to me, Stuart, perfection is not when there is nothing left to add. It's when there's nothing left to take away. And it just resonates every time I hear that. I've actually pinned it on my notice board in my office as a big reminder, because I do tend to, strive for perfection. And in striving for perfection, a lot of things don't get done. So perfection is not when there is nothing left to add. It's when there is nothing left to take away. So I totally understand where you're coming from. So, Jason, you shared a lot of great information so far, but what we haven't looked into is who is Jason Womack? So if you could just briefly go a little bit into your backstory. How did you get started? What inspired you? Was it a book, a movie, people in your life? What inspired you to end up where you are today?
Wow. In just a few words, I'll do what I can. Like many children of the 70s in the United States, I grew up with separated parents. So I was very, very young. My parents got divorced, and I wound up living between those two families, my dad and stepmom, and then my mom and my stepdad. And my mom and stepdad, they owned a local small restaurant in a small town in California that I lived in. 50 miles away in the big city of San Francisco, my father was the CEO of a worldwide retail company, where literally he was traveling 150 to 200 days per year. His company was on the forefront of the retail experience through the 80s and 90s. So with my father, I learned about the necessity, the impact of marketing, advertising, and product development. From my mom, I learned about the significance of the customer experience and the relationship to one's community. Now, neither one of those by itself is better or worse or right or wrong or more or less. But my goodness, when I put those two together, So imagine when I became a high school teacher back in the 1990s, when I looked out over those 150 students that I taught every day. On the one side, I was looking at them thinking, how can I prepare them for a global future? How can I prepare them for the supply chain management? How can I prepare them for the economic world that they're stepping into? And then how can I teach them about the significance of building relationships, the significance of building trust with themselves, with their families, with their coaches, with their school, with their classmates? Subsequent to that, when Jody, my wife, and I decided to start our company, the Womack Company, I looked at those same two things. I've spoken in more than 20 countries. I speak about 80 times per year around the world. We were about to publish our fourth book. This will be our first book with both of our names on it. And I continue looking at not just the global viewpoint, but also that very local customer relationship base. So I know I danced a little bit around who Jason is, but that's really the philosophy of how I look out at the world. I have a younger brother. I have a younger sister. I'm married for, more than 16 years to my college sweetheart. We met in a history class in college here at the University of California. And I guess on the other side, I race triathlon, I swim, I bike, I run, and I just registered for my first ever full marathon. That will be the Los Angeles Marathon in 2016.
Well, congratulations for that, Jason. I got a lot of admiration.
It's a big step to register. Now I have to show up.
I'm sure we've got hundreds of witnesses now, so there's no turning back. All right. I love the fact that you mentioned you met your sweetheart in the history class, and I'd just like to add from that point on,
the rest is history. Thank you.
The rest is history. There you go. Jason, we are coming to a close, unfortunately. Really, I feel like I know you already, and I'm sure the listeners are going to feel that connection and the love that you have and the passion that you have for the people that you help. So if somebody out there, for example, a recently promoted manager or someone who's just founded a small business and they're looking to work smarter, lead better, think bigger and achieve more, and to cause major positive, impactful change for themselves, their families, and communities. For those kinds of people out there, Jason, and they're listening to this and they're thinking, you know something, this is Jason Womack. This is the guy that I need to get in touch with. I want to learn more. I want to know who this guy is. I need his help. Please, how do people connect with you? And please mention your books, your websites, your email addresses. How do people get in touch with you, Jason?
Well, you know me. We've spent a good hour together, so I will give them the yes hurdle. You go to yourbestjustgotbetter.com. There you can download a PDF of the first 27 pages of my book. As you read that PDF, the moment you have a question, email me. My email address, jason@womackcompany.com. I'm sure, Stuart, you'll put those in the show notes for everybody. Absolutely. And the only hurdle is that you do a little bit of the work specifically around when are you at your best and what is an upcoming ideal day. There are websites for those as well at mybestwhen.com, as well as shareyoridealday.com. I look forward to hearing from anybody in this community and of being of service and of getting you to help us fulfill this dream of every school in the world, teachers asking their children, when are you at your best? And then taking the responsibility to create the environment that may support them in that.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We really appreciate you being on the show. It is time for us to leave, Jason. Any final thoughts before we go?
I just want to acknowledge you, not just for putting this together, Stuart, but for sharing very honestly, openly, and vulnerably with us today. And I want to surround myself with leaders like you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Jason. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Jason Womack of the Womack Company.com, and you can also get in touch with him at mybest.com, and I'll make sure, as I promised on air, to have all of the contact details from Jason and his company within the show notes. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Take care of yourselves out there. Goodbye and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.